Welcome to the Believe, Be Real, Be Bold podcast for authentic daters. I'm your host, Dave in Denver. Each week, we invite expert guests to come share their knowledge, tools, and tips to help you show up as your most authentic self. Hey guys, welcome back to the BBR podcast. My name is Dave Glazer in Denver, and I have with me a very special guest, Varsha from North Carolina. Can you say your full name for me, please?
Varsha Mathur.
Oh, good. You're a very unique soul, and I've loved getting to know your work a little bit better. And I want to share that with our audience now. Can you tell me a little bit about how and why you got into this business that you're in?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to share all of this. I got started when I was post-divorce, kind of coming out of the shell that you kind of tuck yourself into when you're in the divorce situation. And once I was happy again and dating again and working really successfully, people started coming out of the woodwork and asking me how I got out of this mess essentially. And I started blogging, and that sort of organically turned into a coaching business. I really realized that the methods I used in hindsight were in fact a method. And so I created a program that allows women to sort of focus on getting into a better place for themselves. And my background is law and mediation. I practiced law for a while. I had a management company for a while. So I had a lot of sort of entrepreneurial things that drove me into coaching as well.
Good. How does being from law and management coaching help you deal with individuals who are looking for love?
Well, a lot of my passion comes from not wanting women to struggle the way that I struggled, and making sure that women know that they have support and tools that they can use to get themselves out of it, especially in the South Asian community. Divorce and dating and things like that are just so taboo. There's a huge stigma around it. And so by sharing my story and showing people that there's life after divorce, I feel like other women may benefit from it. But as far as my prior life, I think from a business perspective, it's helped me quite a bit to just understand how to vocalize my message, how to create the coaching program. And then, of course, being a mediator has helped me really hone in on some of the communication skills that women need for dating and, building lasting relationships.
Awesome. And who is it? You keep saying women. Who is it specifically? Age ranges and maybe specifically where they come from and where they're going. Who comes to see you?
So I work with women all over the country, some even in like London and in Canada, but typically, late 20s to 40s, a lot of women in their 30s, and they come from all different backgrounds, typically, really amazing at everything that they do at work and just killing it in every aspect of their life, and then having a little bit of problems when it comes to the romantic aspect of life.
What are some common experiences or problems that they are having finding that love that they're looking for?
Number one really is self-confidence. I see time after time, successful, beautiful, healthy women, highly educated women, really not have the same kind of confidence in their personal life that they do at work. And then I also find that, online dating is a real struggle. There are a lot of sort of hurdles that come with online dating that without sort of knowing what they are in advance, you can get really caught up in them. And tackling that is huge. The ghosting, having to connect with somebody via text, and whether or not that's even worth it. All of these things I think everyone faces, not just women. And I choose predominantly to work with women only because that's what I know. That's who I am. That's what I could associate with. And I do have a program for men. I don't advertise it as openly, but I am thinking about coming out with a little handbook for men soon.
Good. I agree. I work primarily with women in my personal training business, And what I've found is that they're incredibly coachable. Do you find the same when you're working with them one-on-one, or do you do group training as well?
I do. I have one-on-one and a group program, and it's so true. Everybody is receptive to not just my concept, but especially in the group program, you see people learning from each other, which I just love because you can only touch on so many topics. But then when someone else throws in their insight or their experiences, it's just tenfold as far as what you get out of the program.
Of course, I recently joined a men's group myself, one of the first times I've ever tried it. And although I've grown exponentially on my own through hosting the podcast, but also through some work beforehand, in my first meeting with a group of men, I got called out on some BS that I was trying to serve up.
Nice. That is the best thing about coaching. And I find this with myself as well, like constantly putting yourself out there, seeing life in a different light and being real and raw.
That's right. So why is building confidence so crucial early on when women are maybe trying to set their intentions with dating again?
So the concept that especially after a breakup, but really any single woman, the feeling that the one guy who messages you, who communicates with you and seems to click with you might be the one, that is a very dangerous mentality. And I find that women who have a really strong foundation of who they are, what they want, and have confidence in who they are, they do not sort of throw all their eggs in one basket. And they're more likely to take a look at it from arm's length and say, okay, is this really for me? Not because I'm getting attention, but because it's what I want.
I'm all in with that. Absolutely 100% on board with you took the words out of my mouth. And when we say putting all of somebody's eggs in one basket is not necessarily like jumping from date to date to date or dating multiple people at one time. It's simply just not diving all in or going wholeheartedly into a quote unquote relationship before you've gone on a number of dates. Is that kind of the gist of what you're saying also?
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold because I do believe that when it is in early stages, dating multiple people can really help you decide not only what you want, but also see what's out there. There's almost a stage that you need to go through that. And then, yes, when you are meeting someone, especially with profiles and Googling somebody, you can learn a lot about somebody and assume that they're perfect for you. But until you see how they react to certain situations, or until you see what it's like to experience some hardships with them, how can you really know? And so I encourage people to really not get serious for a very long time.
I've been thinking about this for a while, and I have a blog post in draft that I'm not really ready to share yet, but the title of it is Love at First Fight and not Love at First Sight. Because you do need a challenge or two to understand how your partner deals with conflict, as well as maybe how you recover from that first initial conflict too.
Yes. And that's an ongoing relationship thing. I mean, I can't remember the example now, but my husband and I just recently were like, in hindsight, we were like, oh, was that a fight? Like, did we just learn something about our relationship because we disagreed on something? And it was the case. We did grow from this. And I think it did deepen our love and our relationship because we have that behind us now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And how do we discuss the hard topics when they come up?
It's really just a matter of, where, thinking about where you are, what your communication style is, and what the communication style of your partner is, and being honest and creating like a safe space to communicate things. I think a lot of times in the heat of the moment, out of anger, or just like bursting it out maybe in front of friends or something because you think that you'll have backup, these things happen and they're not always the best way to do it. So thinking about the why and the where and the how is better to do beforehand than after.
That is very important, is like understanding where I'm at now and where I want to go. Helps me with my intentions and my boundaries and managing expectations. Before I get into the next set of questions, what is your definition of love?
I think just trust and respect, among so many other things. That's a hard question to ask somebody who's like a huge believer in love and lasting love. But yeah, respect is huge. Trust is huge.
Because we can have compassion and grace for the other person when we have respect for them. And then getting into forgiveness within a relationship helps kind of mitigate conflict or its residual effects.
Yeah. Right. I mean, respect is really almost a cop-out answer because it really is all encompassing. If you can constantly say that in the deepest part of your heart, you respect somebody, you will forgive them. You will be compassionate. You will be everything,
Mm-hmm.
towards them.
A true partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And understanding where you're at right now is a big deal to me. And it can be kind of defined as mindfulness. Why do we focus so much on mindfulness in a relationship and its importance?
Well, you're doing it in a relationship, but you're actually doing it for yourself and to yourself, right? So you're creating this space of sort of solidifying your mind and your soul and your body, and that then as a result is for your relationship. I think it is really just a way to strengthen communication between you and your partner, and being very clear about what you need and how you can give them what they need as well.
And being self-aware and having that confidence makes us more attractive to our partner, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of that cliche. I know there's a saying like, it happens when you least expect it, or, you got to work on yourself first and then somebody will come their way. But it's very true. And I think even a lot, and what I encourage a lot of clients to do is that, it doesn't have to also mean that you're perfect and then you can go out and date and then you'll find somebody. No, it's a journey for the rest of your life. And, I work on mindfulness pieces for my own self. I know my husband does it for himself, and, it's never ending. So it's very important.
We're big, huge fans of Brene Brown around here. And of course, like her book, Gifts of Imperfection is of the utmost quality. And she says it's so much better than I could at any time. And we're never going to be perfect. And we're also never going to find that perfect person for us. So how do we kind of manage our expectations around that pursuit while we're dating?
Well, really narrowing it down with like what you want out of the relationship. And a lot of people will like use things that are extremely vague. But I think when you start thinking about expectations, you can really tailor those things and know what they are, and make it so that it's not that it's very clear. It's like black and white things that you can expect from somebody, because there's a lot of gray area. And when you start having expectations in the gray area, it's hard to judge whether or not you're actually getting this expected thing from your partner. So again, it comes down to knowing what you want.
Mm-hmm. I always recommend that we set our intentions first. What is it do we want out of this dating process? Why are we going into it in the first place? And then therefore we don't waste our own time and we don't waste other people's time as well.
Yeah.
So my question is, how does someone know whether a relationship is worth it or not?
The question coming up at all in your mind, I think, makes it probably not worth it. I really, really believe that a good, healthy relationship takes all of this mind game sort of confusion out of the picture. And not to say that every relationship's easy, but figuring out that it's right is the easy part. And then the hardships come along because of circumstances down the road, outside circumstances.
And sometimes inside circumstances as well, because
Sure.
we're human and we're going to make mistakes throughout our long-term relationships for sure.
Absolutely.
So you kind of have to trust your gut when it comes to knowing if it's worth it or not. And then you have to tune in with that. I guess that's another piece of the mindfulness puzzle, and understanding what your intentions are within the relationship. So asking yourself the question, is this worth it? Kind of clues you in to tune into your gut and your mindfulness. Am I
Yes.
getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. And that's another reason why at early stages, you really want to be dating multiple people, because if you're still not sure about anyone, it'll help to be out with somebody else and say, oh, this doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm cheating on the other guy, or this is also wrong. And it helps you sort of gauge the emotional connection you're having with people and the emotional connection that you're having with the experience of dating. Without feeling it out, you're not going to know when it's right.
And you're not necessarily like comparing one person versus the other, but you do want to test the waters and find out what's out there so that your gut and your intuition can send you clear signals while you're being present in the moment.
Yeah, it's almost as if you're testing yourself out in different situations rather than the person there, because they're not going to change. They are who they are. You know, they may change in time, but it's really a matter of, is this what I want to be like in this situation? And that's where you get to make decisions. That's where you have control.
Yeah, because it all starts with you. You're
Yes.
wherever you go, there you are.
Right, right.
So what kind of advice would you give somebody whose core values don't include dating multiple people in the early stages of a relationship?
Well, it's going to have to be taking it slow. Really building and also creating for yourself a way of dating that keeps a person, and I don't want to say like don't connect emotionally, but also letting them in only when you're comfortable enough to let somebody in, at various stages, you know, experiencing different things with them, rather than, you know, because I think what happens is people get very settled in the, oh yeah, come on over tonight, we'll watch a movie. Or of course we're going to go out to dinner again, but really making sure that if you're not dating multiple people, then at least you're doing different kinds of, like, a variety of things with the person that you are dating.
Got it. Taking that process slow and understanding that the other person still has to earn how much of your heart you give. Is that what you were trying to say by like not having your guard up, not keeping a distance, but feeling out the other person to build the trust and earn the respect that's needed in order to share the depths of you?
Right. That's part of it, sharing the depths of you and figuring out like when you're ready for it and when they may be ready for it as well. But also just on a much lighter side of it, just experiencing activities with the person, and exposing yourselves to um, maybe things that are a little more challenging, things that are, you know, fun, sad, happy, adventurous, you know, things that will really let you see who this person is.
Now, what happens if you're dating an introvert that isn't necessarily comfortable with activity after activity and all the variety that comes with that dating experience in the early stages?
Yeah, this is where, again, having a really solid foundation of who you are is going to be super helpful, because when you're dating an introvert, it is so important to be mindful of that all the time, essentially, especially if you're not an introvert. Kind of thinking about, okay, well, number one, is this something that is going to suit me long term? Is this the kind of lifestyle that I want to live? Because you're going to very easily see their lifestyle. And then just being mindful of it, like allowing them quiet time, allowing them to take time before they open up, and knowing that it's not the fault of you or the relationship going wrong, but that it could just be a difference in the personality type.
I love talking about personality types and how they work together and relate with each other. I'm a huge fan of Myers-Briggs, but I'm also a huge fan of the Enneagram also.
Oh, yeah.
I resonate with both, and they're useful tools professionally and personally, as long as we're not corralling somebody in a specific box and we're fluid and we're kind of rolling with the punches or going with the flow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Great.
How do you help somebody find the right kind of dates so that they can really flourish and actually enjoy the process of dating early on, or dating somebody more exclusively?
Well, I encourage people to try all avenues of meeting people. So it's not just one or two dates.
I can always edit that out.
That's
Um,
okay. I'm in the city too, so you never know what you'll hear.
right.
So I encourage people to date on multiple dating sites, but more importantly, go out in real life and do things not just to find dates, but to flourish in your own interests. And that will bring the kind of people to you that also have similar interests and that are going to help you, um, really meet the right kind of matches. Does that answer your question?
It does, absolutely. In my own experience, I'm a busy business owner and I have a daughter, and I just have very, very limited time to say, like, go out and flourish in my own interests. A few of my top are jujitsu, which is predominantly a male dominated sport. There are some very talented females in my jujitsu school, but that's not a place where I'm meeting people.
Yeah.
I don't drink alcohol anymore, so that's another challenge for me. Um, what kind of interest for somebody like me would actually fit into finding a like-minded person?
So this is where I come across this a lot. And a lot of times it's really hard to meet people when you have these like sort of circles of regular things that you're doing. And so I do encourage clients to step outside the comfort zone and break the cycle of their routine if they are very, very, stuck in a certain routine, not stuck in a bad way, but if they're very, into their routine, they're constantly, in the same process, to say, okay, maybe I'll give up jujitsu for 6 months and try something different. And yeah, it's a struggle, but a lot of times you're not going to meet new people if you don't put yourself out there to new circles.
That's so funny because, like, I'm sitting in my desk chair and I'm like really having a hard time picturing giving up my routine, because I'm fairly regimented, and I know how to get outside my comfort zone for sure. But I'm not going to go to Pinot and Pinot and
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to a place like that where maybe I'll meet somebody optimally paired for me.
I'll be honest with you, most of the people that I meet are not as regimented, or that I'm working with are not. And there is room in their schedules to do something new and unique. And if there isn't some place for them to try something totally different, there's often space for them to start adding things to their life that could get them outside of the norm of meeting the same girlfriends for cocktails or the same group of friends at the movies or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I can envision freeing up some time. I told you earlier that I've never done a men's group before. And as we're leaving the other night, after our conversation is over with, a couple of guys are talking to me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing this Saturday? You wanna meet up and hang out?" And it's an immediate yes to me, because this is something new and it's something not regimented, it would actually take the place of my intention of maybe going out on a date on a Saturday instead.
Yeah, it's really, you know, it's great if you're able to make those choices and also know that you don't have to change forever. You can always go back to the things that you love if the new stuff doesn't work for you.
So if somebody and I click in these new experiences, and then I start to shift back to my old routine, does that kind of bring up the subject of misleading that person? Like, say I'm an introvert and I want to get outside my comfort zone, so I do start doing extroverted things, and then I get into a relationship, and all of a sudden I'm introverted again.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say, part of it is going to have to be um, sort of showing the new person in your life what it is like to communicate with you, to be in touch with you. And, I mean, there are plenty of people that I meet once or twice in a networking group or something. And then I find that networking group is not right for me, but it's up to me. It's on me to keep those connections going despite our different schedules or whatever.
Got it. Absolutely. So maybe asking the other person to meet me where I'm at. Like, I'm an introvert, so I'll go out on a Friday night, but then let's recover just you and I Saturday, Sunday. Say we're living together down the road. Is that a possibility of compromise or meeting somebody where they're at?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I mean. And I often do this when you meet people in large groups. Connecting one-on-one is better whether you're an extrovert or introvert anyways. So, that one-on-one connection will go further than anything in a large group.
I totally agree. I'm envisioning like kind of an old school approach to dating where you've got to like separate the one that you want to talk to from her friends in a social situation. So say you're networking and like you go to a large group function and you want to further the conversation with one person. Hey, do you want to go out to coffee? Let's just connect one-to-one here pretty soon.
What is the question?
My question is like, how do I make that not sound like a business deal?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So in a networking situation, it's very different than in a dating situation. Um, when we're talking about dating, I always encourage, again, I work with women to not go out in big groups, but to go out either, with one girlfriend or by themselves, only if they're comfortable, so that they are more approachable. And in a networking setting, sometimes breaking the ice with conversation that is not business oriented and saying, hey, let's grab coffee, I can't stand this speaker, or did you see this show last night, it sounds, or I love your t-shirt, or whatever that you can come up with that will show them that you're not just all about business, will absolutely help.
I'm definitely going to have to get outside my comfort zone there, because in my 30s I have been all business all the time.
I understand. Yeah, it took me a long time actually, even like because I was working as an attorney, just stopping the constant wearing a blazer thing. It took me a long time, or just, walking around with business cards nowadays sometimes is still very archaic. And so I'm trying to get out of this like very rigid business world, and it's so much better to not have to wear suits. But, part of that is just allowing yourself to be who you truly are in those settings rather than who you think you have to be in that business mindset.
So even representing my most authentic self in a large group setting could potentially attract the right kind of people, business or personal, to me anyways.
Great.
And as I was getting to know you a little bit more, I wanted to ask, what does it mean to have Lux in your life?
So the word Lux stands for life unleashed by an exceptional existence. And what that means is that your Lux, your luxury in your life could be right in front of you right now. And living an exceptional existence means putting yourself in a place where you are really, really happy with who you are, you're confident with who you are, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean Chanel and Prada and Gucci and all that kind of lux, but it's really just feeling completely content with the life that you're living today.
And where does one begin to start the process of finding that experience, that exceptional existence?
Well, getting onto my coaching program, number one, is always a nice place to start. But, a lot of my program does begin with the confidence building, the mindfulness, and the sort of inner work that is required of people in order to kind of be the uh, strong person in a relationship and to be wholeheartedly available for a relationship.
I love that word, wholehearted.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand and to maybe digest the concept of what wholeheartedly dating a person means. Not because I was dating multiple people at the same time, but understanding what it's like to go all in and actually enjoy that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, before I close it out, I have one final question. Before I close it out, what's the best way that somebody can get a hold of you if they loved what you had to say?
So I'm available for a free introductory call to kind of learn a little bit more about my programs and really figure out where you're at. You can schedule that at luxandlovecoaching.com. Also on my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Lux and Love Coaching. You can just sign up for a free call and we could go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll put that information in the show notes below, guys. So if Varsha's message resonates with you today, don't hesitate to reach out. She's available for that free coaching call, free discovery call. And my final question of the day is, what red flags should we be aware of when dating online?
So anytime you feel discomfort in the way that somebody's texting you or communicating with you, you do not need to respond to inappropriate messages. And, as far as like whether or not the person's profile is accurate, things like that, just being mindful of the fact that if this person is like this and inaccurate on their profile, you're not the only one they're insulting with this. Unfortunately, it's really important to not take that personally and, just sort of move on so that you can continue finding the right person.
I totally understand that. Being a busy business owner and a father, I very rarely get the opportunity to meet somebody organically, as they say, or out in person, because the things I'm doing for myself, by myself, are intended to make me a better man, a better person, healthier, the fitness, exercise, the jujitsu, the men's group. So I love the discovery process of how authentic people can show up in person once you've gotten past all the initial stages of online dating.
Yes.
Let me bring a question into this whole piece. So I guess it comes back to trusting your gut and knowing when a relationship is worth the time and effort. I'm going to have to do some editing here, but help me organize my thoughts here.
Yeah. So when to really figure out if who you're dating is worth it or if they're the right one for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely the end result of what we're looking for from an online match. But say like we're actually a little bit earlier in the online matching process,
Yeah.
and we feel a connection, but then at what point do we decide that that is worth it to go to the next step and actually meet in person?
Okay. Yeah. So unless you are talking to somebody that is long distance and you can't see them really immediately, I really like for it to go from dating app to, texting or emailing, whatever your thing is, to phone call, like almost immediately, because long conversations on text messages are really bad for dating. It is the norm in society today, especially for the 30 and under age group, but it does not help with learning who somebody is. So get on the phone and then try to meet somebody if they're in your city, I would say as quickly as possible, but after a phone call so that you really can get a feel for whether there's chemistry there. And then for long distance, I like to say that, as soon as you can schedule something within a month, especially if there's flights involved, within a month is pretty reasonable. If you're, a mature person who's ready for a relationship, you can usually swing an airline ticket, within 30 days. So I would encourage that to happen, especially if you are looking for somebody long distance. You've already made these plans for yourself that you're ready to do that. Meet them in person after a phone call, because I know for myself, my husband and I connected, we were long distance when we first met. And we connected so much on the phone that when it came time to meeting him, I was actually nervous because I needed, for my own sake, for me to be attracted to him with that sort of person to person chemistry, not just phone chemistry. So, nipping that in the bud early on is really great. And until you have that phone conversation, you won't know whether you feel comfortable enough to even do that.
Got it. I'm on board. And if there's one key piece of advice that you would leave us with today, what stands out at you, and what is one of those things that we haven't covered in our conversation?
Let's see, what have we not covered?
Or we can certainly
You know,
expand on something that we've touched on briefly.
Yeah, I think, it's something that keeps coming up for a lot of my clients is ghosting, and not allowing that to really affect you personally. And it's really hard not to get hurt by that, because it's natural for our brains to want to go back to a time when I was texting and happy and communicating with this person. But once that person leaves, we do this sort of like tug of war thing with our emotions, and it's really exhausting. But if you recognize that this could potentially be part of the process, it makes it a lot easier to say goodbye and move on and move forward.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point of saying thank you. Thank you for excusing yourself from this short-term pen pal situation, or just texting, or talking occasionally. It's about quality time for me, and if you're not providing that value and that quality, then unfortunately we're not the right fit anyway. So thank you very much for showing me that earlier than later.
Exactly. No, that's great. Very
Trying to
good.
maintain that positive attitude so that I don't carry it into the next time I get ghosted.
Well, exactly. And you don't want to have that burden on the shoulders of the next person you meet without them even knowing that they're carrying that burden.
It's absolutely correct. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I know that you're busy, so I won't take up much more of it, but thank you so very much for spending the time with me. If Varsha's message resonates with you guys, please don't hesitate to reach out to her now. Her information is below in the show notes, and she's ready and waiting, available to help you find that lux in your life.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.